Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our very first joint AMBA and BGA webinar for business school staff aimed at giving schools groundbreaking content on the most pressing challenges in the business education industry. It is only right that we start off with a topic that many business schools are aware of and taking seriously, the role of leading the digital future. There are massive developments taking place. Harvard Business School just recently launched Harvard Business School Online, formerly HBX, as a way to get courses and programs to everyone using online learning. Similarly, schools such as Manchester Metropolitan School launched an MBA program which is fully taught online. But the question remains, should schools invest more in digital technologies to become leaders in this area, and if so, how? With us today we have Federico Frattini, Professor of Strategic Management and Innovation at the School of Management of Politecnico di Milano and Director of School of the MBA and Executive MBA programs. He'll be explaining how schools such as his school have utilized digital technology to pave the way into the future of business education. I'll now pass over to Federico, who will take our webinar today. To you, Federico.
Yes, thank you, Paul, for your introduction. It's a great pleasure for me to be here in this webinar. So as Paul said, the goal of this webinar is to share with you some experiences that our school, MIP Politecnico di Milano, had in the last years, I would say in the last 5 years in the field of digital learning. And then I would like to engage also you in some little questions and answers, which I'm sure are the critical issues you are thinking about in your discussion around whether we should go for digital learning as business schools and how, if we decide to take this direction. Just a few introductory words to tell you who we are. Our university is Politecnico di Milano, which is the most outstanding technical university in Italy. It's a pretty big university compared to the Italian and European standard, because we have more or less 43,000 students and 1,400 professors and lecturers active in all the fields of engineering, architecture, and design. According to the latest QS World University Rankings, we are 5th in the world in the field of design, 9th in the field of architecture, and 17th in the world in the field of engineering. Politecnico di Milano is divided into 12 departments or schools. One of these 12 schools is the School of Management, which is where we work. And the mission of the School of Management is to impact on society by producing new knowledge and sharing this knowledge through education programs at the intersection between engineering, management, and economics. You see on the left of this picture some of the research areas in which we are internationally acknowledged leaders, and on the right of the picture, the portfolio of education programs that we run, which include both Master of Science, Bachelor programs, so undergraduate programs in management engineering, PhD programs, and all the postgrad education that we run, including MBA, executive MBAs, specializing master, corporate and open executive programs, and training program for institutions and public administration. The School of Management is, just to give you an idea of our size, an organization including more or less 250 faculty professor, with a total budget of around 40 million and 5,000 students enrolled in degree programs every year. And we have a new campus in the northwest of Milan, which is more or less 12,000 square meters large. So we are one of the 12 schools of Politecnico di Milano, and within this school, MIP is the graduate school of business, so is within the School of Management the organization which takes care of all the post-grad and post-experience learning and education in the field of management. At MIP, so the Business School of Politecnico di Milano, we have gone through an interesting, I hope, journey in digital learning, starting from 2014. In 2013, our business school had almost no digital technologies applied to education. Just a few experiences were done back in 2010 and 2011 to record some asynchronous video material to be used in our executive MBA program. But we can say that until 2013, we were digital free. Then we decided, as part of a leading technical university, a technical university like Politecnico, where a lot of research is done in the field of digital technologies, that we should think strategically about how digital technologies applied to learning and to education could represent a source of competitive advantage. And so we started a process which is still ongoing. And the process started by launching in 2014 an executive MBA program that we called FLEX Executive MBA, which is taught almost entirely online, digitally, although we have around 20% of activities done still face-to-face in our campus. So we can call it a blended program, but with more than 80% of the activities that can be taken in distance learning wherever our students are. In 2012, we digitalized, if we can say that, our portfolio of executive open programs that we called Management Academy. So starting from 2015, all the 140 short courses that we offer to managers and executives every year can be attended face-to-face here in our campus, but also through a new live streaming platform that we run and was created exactly to enable more flexibility in accessing this portfolio of short courses. Then in 2016, we launched the international cohort of the FLEX Executive MBA, because I didn't say that before, but the FLEX Executive MBA is taught in Italian for Italian students. Starting from 2016, we have the same format, the same structure, but for international managers and executives. And in 2017, we started to offer our digital platform and our digital approach also to our corporate partners. So more or less 40% of all the programs that we design and deliver to our corporate partners like Vodafone, like Fiat, Chrysler Automobiles, and many others include digital tools and are based on our digital learning platform. And finally, the last project that we are working on right now, which started back in 2018, is called FLEXA, and it's artificial intelligence-based platform for personalized continuous learning of our students, alumni, and all the prospects interested in our educational offering. But I will tell you something later on about this project. So I think that when we started to think about digital learning back in 2013, the feelings were a little bit mixed. There were, we can say, many interesting initiatives. For instance, all the MOOC phenomenon started in 2012, but a lot of very well-respected schools like Harvard Business School were, we can say, not really positive about the potential role that digital learning could have in their education offering. Here you can see an interview of the dean of our business school in 2010, Nitin Noria. He said, when will our business school enter the area of online education? And he said, not in my lifetime. And as Paul was saying, he changed his mind, because a few days ago, our business school decided to rename HBX, their small platforms to experiment with online learning, into Harvard Business School Online, which, as this article from Business Insider says, is a small change, but is a huge shift in my view, in the feelings around digital learning, also from top leading business school like Harvard Business School. So also in our business school, there were a lot of discussion running on about whether we should use digital learning as a tool to hopefully strengthen our competitive advantage. And at the end, the basic question that we all ask ourselves, and then I would like to ask you in this webinar, is digital learning is more like a sustaining innovation for business school, or is more like a disruptive innovation? So sustaining innovation means business school can use digital technologies to increase the value that they offer to their existing student customers, or on the other way around, digital learning is more like a disruptive innovation, something that at the beginning will be for sure performing forwards compared to our standard face-to-face approach to teaching, but maybe it can be appealing to some unserved niche market segment, but then starting from there, it can threaten the market position of business school. It's the Clayton Christensen idea of disruptive innovation that best describe digital learning, or it's more like a sustaining innovation for business school. If you can say your point of view about this question, I would be very interested to knowing what you think.
Okay, Federico, so we've launched the poll and we have 40% saying sustaining and we have 60% which say disruptive.
Okay, that's wonderful. So it's a very well-balanced perspective, but the disruptive point of view is the most common question. I give you my perspective, and my perspective is that depending on how strategically you approach and you decide to use digital learning, you can use it as a tool to strengthen your existing competitive advantage, offering more to your students, managers, and executives along the dimension of performance that they've, searched for so far. Or on the other point of view, you can also think about digital technologies in business models and perspective that can potentially disrupt the existing approach to education that business schools have been bringing to market over the last years. If you take also the big thinkers, there are different points of views. I was reading interviews to Michael Porter and Clayton Christensen, both from Harvard, and a few years ago they were saying, Michael Porter, as you see, digital learning is a sustaining innovation because it's something that can help business schools strengthen their competitive advantage and increase, empower their value proposition, reflecting their existing strategy. But at the same time, Clayton Christensen said it's better if you consider disruptive innovation, digital learning as a disruptive innovation. Do it cheap, simple, get it out there, and then you will discover the impact that digital learning can have on the competitive advantage of business schools. Of course, Clayton Christensen maybe was a little bit biased because he's the father of the disruptive innovation idea. But at the end, these two perspectives were very evident also in the discussion in our faculty and in our executive committee. As I said, we started from an approach to digital learning, which we can call sustaining innovation. And this is our history from 2014 to 2017. And now I will tell you why. And then more recently, we started to think about how digital learning can really change the business model of a business school from their very roots, and how digital learning can really change the game in this market segment. And it's our experience with FLEXA. Why online executive MBAs, short executive courses that you can attend through a streaming platform, corporate custom education programs that can be taught digitally, and students, managers, executives can attend from wherever they are. The courses are examples of sustained innovation. Well, very easily, because you are giving to your existing customers more flexibility, easier access, without sacrificing quality interaction and skill development. This is my key point. If you do digital learning as a sustaining innovation, you have to have an approach that does not sacrifice quality, interaction, skill development, but adds on top of these flexibility, easy to access, which is a very important performance required by our executives, our prospective students, and I'm sure also requested by yours prospective students. So I think that making digital learning as a sustaining innovation means absolutely finding an approach which gives the same quality of teaching, the same type of interaction among students and with the faculty, the same opportunity to develop also personal digital skills, the same impact on the job market, and adding on top of these more flexibility, which is a critical performance aspect for our existing customer. And this is what we did, starting from 2013 to 2017. And today, digital learning as a sustaining innovation blends into more than 30% of all the programs and all the courses that we offer in our business school. So the idea was finding a way which does not, let's say, sacrifice quality interaction, but adding more performance along what our students ask for. How we did so? Just to give you an example, and then I'd like to start again a little Q&A with you to listen to your viewpoints. This is how the International FLEX EMBA is structured. It's a mix of different learning tools and learning activities. As you see, it's made of some digitally taught distant learning courses and seminars with guest speakers from companies and institutions. It includes 2 face-to-face weeks here in our Milan campus and abroad at the beginning and at the middle of the program. It includes also a leadership and personal development program taught during the face-to-face weeks, but also using some digital tools. At the end, it features project work activities that students do in teams. And it offers the opportunity to the students to specialize in digital transformation as a distinctive feature of this executive MBA. The courses taught digitally are 23, and they cover the typical general management topics of any executive MBA, and they are organized around 4 terms or 4 pillars. And these are all taught digitally. Every week you have some asynchronous self-paced digital material to watch and study, and one live session synchronous activity which is 2.5 hours long. Then 2 face-to-face weeks on digital learning, on digital transformation and leadership, and at the end, an optional activity, a 3rd elective week, which you can choose among some of our courses that we held here at the Business School in Milan, or some international trips in China, Mexico, Silicon Valley. As I said, leadership and career development activities run throughout the program, and the project work is a final important interactive activity. Here you see the typical structure of a single general management course, which features a mix of 50% asynchronous and 50% synchronous digital learning tools, including a library of video clips. We are now in the process of rebuilding, re-recording all our library of general management courses video clips, which includes more or less 100 hours. So it's a huge investment and effort from an economic point of view and for the faculty. It includes the synchronous live sessions held once per week, and each course can last between 2 to 4 weeks. It also includes some reading material and also additional video material, and video forum where discussion is moderated by the faculty professor around some topics that are relevant for the course that is taught. And every week we have one or more content tutors who are typically young faculty members who are not teaching the video clips, are not teaching the live sessions, but are available to answer to any question and to stimulate discussion through the digital tools that we offer. They also are asked and paid to have, let's call it a service level agreement, whereby in no more than 3 hours after a question or a comment is posted on the platform, they have to give, let's say, an answer back to our students. Our online or 20% blended programs have very, very good performance. First of all, if you look at the participation of the students, 90% of the students watch the video material by the established deadline. 100% of the students watch the video clips, all the video material before the end of the course. Each video clip, which is made of 15-minute video material, takes on average 45 minutes to watch and let's say study, and at least 25% of the students watch again the video material to prepare themselves for the final evaluation. If you take the live synchronous session, more than 70% of the students take part in the Q&A and live session. 1/3 of them during the live session actively interact with professor. 100% interact using the chat. And 90% of those who can't join the synchronous live session watch the recorded version of the live session after it is uploaded on the platform. And each live session features a work group activity whereby students are split into virtual teams, and the professor enters into the virtual teams to give suggestions, take part in discussion, and these discussions are really, really much interactive. 90% of the students take part in the discussion on the forum, which we do through Yammer, and 50% of the students does the additional non-compulsory activity like business games, simulations, competitions running through the FLEX Executive MBA. The program, in terms of how much the students learn, is very effective. For instance, if you look at some indicators like the one that you see here, and most importantly, the same professors teach in both face-to-face and online digital programs, and they give feedbacks that they cannot see really differences in terms of how much they learn, how their skills are developed. For instance, the average evaluation in the assessment tests at the end of each program is absolutely comparable, and the feedback that and the satisfaction of the students for the courses taught in traditional and online programs are pretty much the same. Here you can see some statistics, and from that numbers you can understand that the overall satisfaction for three, as an example, courses in our Executive MBA are pretty much the same. And here you get the average evaluation for 3 different courses. So typically the same professor evaluates students in the 2 classes, in the 2 cohorts, and uses very often the same assignment every year. Of course, the next year it changes, but for the courses taught the same year, the assignment is the same. And as you can see, the evaluation again is pretty much the same. So we can say that the level of participation, interaction, the effectiveness of the learning process, at least based on our experience, are very satisfactory. We see a lot of commitment of the students. They create strong relationships among them and with the professor, and all the activities are really under control. So if you manage to create digital learning programs as a sustained innovation, which offers more flexibility, more access to the learning experience without sacrificing the quality of what they learn, without sacrificing the amount of interaction they can create, I think this is a way to strengthen your competitive advantage according to a sustained innovation point of view, using the words of Clayton Christensen. And we are a small business school, you saw the numbers, and these results on the digital executive MBAs matter a lot for us. starting from October 2014, we had almost 9 intakes and more than 400 students that decided to enroll in these online formats. And an important aspect is that we didn't have any drop in the number of enrollments in our face-to-face traditional programs. I could say that the reputation that we got as an innovative school, as a digital-oriented school from this experience helped a lot in strengthening our brand reputation also on our face-to-face program. Because we received a number of important, let's say, achievements on our digital learning programs. AMBA shortlisted the FLEX EMBA among the 6 most innovative MBAs worldwide in 2016. We were among the very first and few schools globally receiving the EOX certification for the digital approach we have in the FLEX Executive MBAs. And our FLEX EMBA was ranked by QS World University Ranking among number 20 globally in this particular ranking. So I think that our experience with FLEX EMBA is an example of how a school can use digital technology to strengthen their own competitive advantage and market position in a sustaining innovation way. Of course, it's not easy. There are a lot of things that has to be discussed among the faculty, in the executive boards, and the most important aspects that we discussed and on which we had some experience, I'd like to share with you as a starting point for our discussion. So we prepared some key questions around digital learning as a sustaining innovation for you, and as we did before, we would like to collect your viewpoints, and for each question I can make some comments if you like based on our experience. I think we have a first question for you.
Yes. So Federico, I've just launched the question which should so everyone should be able to see, which is, should the price be higher, same, or lower than comparable EMBAs? So we're just collecting the responses now. So I'll give it a few more seconds for everyone to answer the question, and then I'll give you the answers in a moment. Okay, so the answers to that question is that we've had 0% say that the price should be higher, we've had 33% say it should be the same, and we've had 67% which say that it should be lower. Okay, that's an interesting answer. As you can imagine, this was one of the hottest topics for our discussion in the board and with the academic director. Because when we did a benchmark of the online executive MBAs that were running at that time, we found that some schools applied a lower price compared to similar face-to-face programs. Some of them, to be honest, a smaller percentage, even a higher price, okay, and more or less 30% the same price. What is my perception, my feeling about this topic is that if you want to position your digital program, be it an MBA, an executive MBA, or specializing master or whatever, as a sustaining innovation, which means giving more to my existing customer along some critical performance dimension for them, then it's important that the price is at least the same of your standard face-to-face programs, or it could be also even higher than existing comparable program. Because in my view, it's very important that the message is that we give you exactly the same experience in terms of skills that you gain, in terms of interaction that you can have, in terms of the diploma that you can get. Our degrees that we give as a business school and as Politecnico
are exactly the same for a full-time executive MBA and an online executive MBA. But because we created a program that is exactly the same in terms of hours, contact hours, types of interaction, leadership development, and things like this. So if you position the program at a lower price point, I think that the message is at the end, you get a product, you get an experience which, from some points of view, it's lower quality than a comparable executive MBA. My experience says that it's possible to do a program with the same quality, adding on top of this flexibility, possibility to interact with students, professors, and learning in mobility, which is a very important, let's say, selling point and value driver. Then you should consider also that I'm also doing many reviews in accreditation reviews for online programs, and I see that around this topic there's a lot of different experiences. The cost for running a digital program, in my experience, it's not true that they are lower than running a similar, comparable, equally accredited face-to-face program, because the number of additional attention services. Take an example, our content tutor, a person that is paid just to stay on the platform for 1 week and answer to any question or comment coming in on the platform. It's something that you need to spend if you want to, let's say, give the same quality. Okay, and then there's a lot of capex to be done at the beginning. In our experience, creating the digital content library was much more costly than creating the digital platform. And we took a decision to create a digital platform from scratch, not using open source technologies or other already available solutions, but to create one from scratch in partnership with Microsoft. And this notwithstanding, creating the digital asynchronous material was much more costly than creating the platform. So you had a lot of depreciation and amortization to include in your income statement. At the end, our digital executive MBAs are not as profitable as the face-to-face program. Although, I didn't tell it before, we decided to apply exactly the same price. So our strategic decision was, if we want to position the program similar, exactly the same value, but more flexibility, we should do that even at a higher price. Then we didn't have the courage to do so, and we decided to position ourselves exactly at the same price point. But the strategic reasoning behind that was exactly what I said. Of course, a completely different strategic approach is, I want to do an online program, lower quality, lower interaction, no possibility to really speak with professor. If I have a question, it takes time to get an answer, but it's only easy to access from wherever you are. Then you position it strategically as a lower quality, lower priced program. But this is not sustaining innovation, in my view. And there's also damage, a potential damage to the reputation of the school. So based on what I see and based on some strategic thinking, I think that positioning digital programs as sustaining innovation in your portfolio, it's something that can pay back. Of course, it requires a clear pricing and positioning and a particularly careful attention to quality assurance and the things you have to put on the table, also in terms of cost to reach that goal. Okay, so interesting discussion about price. Then we had also another interesting discussion in our executive board. Do all topics, do all courses fit digital learning? So is digital learning a good approach online distance for any topic of a typical executive MBA? This is another second question for you.
So we allow the participants just to answer the question. We've got a few more seconds coming in, a few more answers which we should get. So Federico, so For the answers for this question, we've had 67% say yes and 33% have said no.
Okay, that's interesting. To be honest, you find on the market MBAs, executive MBA and masters taught entirely digitally. I understand why you say yes. There are MBAs also not only taught entirely digitally, but also taught entirely in an asynchronous, self-paced approach. Maybe they don't have AMBA accreditation because it's not consistent with the criteria set by AMBA, but they are very successful. They have hundreds of thousands of students. But based on my experience, if you want to give exactly the same knowledge and skill basis as a face-to-face program, then there's something that, in my view, is not 100% effective if you teach it through digital tools and digital learning tools, which is soft skills, leadership, negotiation, conflict resolution, public speaking, and so on and so forth. So it's true that increasingly managers and executives have to lead teams in a digital environment with people all across the globe. But teaching these topics is something that, in my view, requires students, managers, and executives to live them directly without the boundaries that, to some extent, digital learning still produces. I know there are new technologies running on in this direction, which can reduce these barriers, like holograms or like the WOW room created by Istituto de Impresa, or like similar technologies that really can create the human touch, even in a digital environment. But in my view today, with the technologies available, and especially 5 years ago, saying that you teach and you develop exactly the soft skill capabilities of your manager and executive in a digital program and in a face-to-face environment was not 100% truth. And since we wanted, as I said before, to ensure that the quality of the program and the degree that we give was exactly the same as face-to-face programs, we decided to keep the development of soft skill and leadership skill in face-to-face setting. And this is why we have 18% of the entire effort of our online master taught entirely face-to-face here in our campus or abroad in partnership with our international schools. So my view, the distinction that matters here is the more the topic of the course is hard skills linked, the more digital learning also today can be effective tools. The more is soft skills related, still today through digital learning we lack something. Of course, if you want to position your digital learning product as a lower price, lower quality, okay, you can also teach leadership, this is my point of view, of course, through a digital synchronous class. But my perception, my feeling is that you don't really get the same effect. The third question is about will the faculty accept teaching in a learning environment? What we did to do that, to overcome these barriers. So the first question is, well, what's your feeling in terms of how they will react? Positively, negatively?
So we'll just wait a few more seconds just for a few more people to answer. Okay, so for this one, we've had 10% say yes easily, and we've had 90% say no, strong barriers of adaptation.
Yeah, that's interesting, and to be honest, was very close to the reality that we faced back in 2014, and that we are still facing to some extent, but at much lesser, let's say, impact. We started to talk about the ideas of launching digital distance learning programs with the faculty, and the barriers were very strong. To be honest, there were two kinds of barriers. One barrier was more linked to, okay, now after this change, they are, let's say, reducing my job in executive education, and so the additional money that I get from working in the business school, because it's in our environment and in most Italian business schools, working in a business school on top of your professorship commitment is a way to increase your salary. And so the idea was, if you do everything digitally, then it will be less in class teaching, and maybe there will be cannibalization on the face-to-face program. So one reaction was about their involvement in the programs. The most important barriers on the other side was skill and capabilities. So I saw professors thinking that they were not good at recording digital videos, at teaching a class in a synchronous live environment. And the third one was, but in my perspective, was the consequence of these first two perceptions, was that digital learning will be never as effective as face-to-face approaches. So I faced these three kind of reactions. The first two less explicit. The third one really clear. But the most important reasons or barriers were the first two, in my opinion. So the perception of not being able to teach in a digital environment, and on the other side, the perception of having their own involvement in teaching postgrad programs reduced. What was visible was a very negative attitude toward the quality of digital learning. So the second step was what we could do to increase acceptance among the faculty, let's say, were the actions that we could take to bring the faculty on board on these projects. And this is the other questions we wanted to raise.
Okay, we'll just give it a few more seconds for everyone to finish their replies to the question. So we've had 79% say training, and we've had 21% say payment. Okay.
To be honest, again, this is pretty much consistent with our experience. We did a mix of things. To be honest, we did three things. First of all, and this was the most important aspect, we applied, if I can say, the diffusion of innovation theory, the classic diffusion of innovation theory by Rogers. So the idea was to identify among the faculty professors that should be involved in teaching our digital courses, those opinion leaders and early adopters that were more open to digital learning. And we started to train, record video clips, and even we started the executive MBA changing a little bit compared with our standard structure with those courses taught by the professors who were early adopters and opinion leaders around digital technologies. And since they were, as we hoped, and we did everything we could to reach this goal, very positively, let's say, impressed by what it took to create a video clip, what it took to teach an online session. They were very helpful in spreading the word of mouth around digital learning in our school. So the idea was start from selecting the early adopters of digital technologies, maybe because they were younger, but not necessarily not youngest faculty members. Those who were more positive toward this shift, start with them, train them, and then leverage their word of mouth. So in the training sessions that we ran after the beginning of the project, we involved the early adopters who were positively impressed by the easiness to use the technology, the impact on the students, and this is what was a very important aspect. Then, of course, training, and training meant asking professionals with very different background to come here and have training sessions, but to prevent the risk of training sessions going empty, we had to create the hype through the mechanisms I told you before. Okay, and for instance, we have theater actors coming in and teach our professors how to speak in a video clip. We had other people with backgrounds in online pedagogical methods to explain the rationale behind teaching in a digital environment. But these approaches were useful and were effective only because, in my view, in my experience, we created the positive word of mouth and hype through the early adopter approach I told you before. Then payment, of course. We changed the business model through which we paid professor, because, of course, if you ask professor to record digital material, and this by definition means that they go in class to teach less, we had to find a way to reward their initial effort to produce material, considering how many students then watched those video clips. So the idea was to introduce a kind of royalty methods whereby professors were paid for recording, producing, designing the library of asynchronous video material. But then every time a student watched one of their video clip, they received a royalty payment on top. So the idea is that we are not taking you out of our exec ed classes. We are just changing the business model through which you pay you. So we transformed a fixed cost into a variable cost through the mechanism of the running royalties. And the last questions we wanted to ask you is about the feature of a good digital learning platform, because we did a lot of discussion and thinking around this topic, and I wanted also to listen to what you think.
So we'll give it just a few more seconds so people can send in their answers. Okay, so Federico, we have 30% saying allowing interaction and discussions. We have 60% saying greater user experience and user interface. And we have 10% say online plus offline.
Okay, this is interesting, and I perfectly agree with your point. To be honest, based on my experience, let's say great user experience and user interface was a prerequisite. Okay, it's impossible today to ask people who are used to be really immersed in the greatest user experiences and interfaces every day to have a digital learning platform which offers a completely different user experience and user interface. It's very important, because I remember in 2013 I attended some online courses from other universities, and I saw platforms that only in terms of user interface and user experience were far away from the experience that we have every day just opening up our smartphone. So very important, but almost a prerequisite. Otherwise, interaction on the platform drops, and this negatively impacts the learning process. Of course, interaction and discussion, both asynchronously and in a synchronous way, it was key features for the platform that we wanted to create. But at that time, finding the LMS, learning management systems, with really effective tools for synchronous discussion, allowing team working in a distance learning environment, were not so many. today the picture has changed, and all the digital learning platforms that you can find on the market feature these particular characteristics, but in 2013, not so many. And this is why the most important reason why we decided to create a platform from scratch by partnering with Microsoft. So we did an important investment to create a digital learning platform, which was based on the SharePoint LMS, and it used Office 365 productivity tools as a virtual learning environment. Means as a set of tools through which every student learn, work, interact on the platform. And this represented one of the most important, let's say, distinctive features of our platform. The fact that our students and executives use today the same tools that they use to work or for their personal lives for studying on our platform. So it's really seamless. So the same tool you use to interact with your colleagues, okay, it's the same one you use to interact with your classmates and with professor. The same tool that you use to schedule your activity is the same that you use to schedule your learning commitments. So this aspect of having students use the same tool for learning professional activities and private life was a very key turning point, especially for the elder people who attended and less digitally, let's say, active people who attended our FLEX Executive MBA. By the way, we experienced in the online Executive MBAs an average age of people attending them, which was, as many other schools I know, a little bit higher compared to the face-to-face programs. So we could think that digital learning programs are mostly for younger people, more, let's say, digitally, digitally interested. But at the end, we found ourselves with people with a higher average age attending the online programs, maybe because these people pay more value to access inflexibility to a learning environment, because their opportunity cost for traveling is even higher than younger people. And then the offline aspect seemed a very stupid thing. At the beginning, we didn't think about that, but consider that most of your executive managers and people attending a program like an MBA are traveling, and unfortunately, or luckily, I don't know, while traveling, in most cases, in some cases, you don't have internet access. So the focus group we ran to create the platform gave us the clear indication that the platform should allow students to download at the beginning of the week all the material, watch it, study it, take notes, take the multiple answer questions, also offline. And when the platform is reconnected to the web, everything is synchronized, the browser version and the app version of the platform. So to be honest, the key features were, as I said before, user interface, the aspect of allowing interaction in live synchronous classes, the aspect of having the offline access, and a platform made around the same productivity tools that students and managers were used to use in their everyday life. On top of these, of course, we realized that there were other important aspects in creating a product that was a sustaining innovation for our students. How we created the courses, syllabi completely changed. In an online environment, syllabi have to be much more detailed, much more precise, and we experienced that after we started to run our online programs. So if in a face-to-face program, a syllabus can be rather short, summarize the key aspects of the course. If you move into an online environment, you need to be much more precise and tell the students exactly what they're expected to do every day along their experience in one course. So just to give you an idea, from I don't know, a 3-4 page document for a syllabus in a face-to-face course lasting, I don't know, 6 weeks, to 15 pages document for a syllabus of the same course lasting 6 weeks, but in an online environment. We realized that there are strong learning economies in running a digital program. So you save a lot of time, you learn a lot of tricks as long as you run a program, especially in terms of coordinating the program, interacting with the students, and so on and so forth. Then another important aspect that we realized is that if you don't continuously measure performance of your online programs, then it's easier than in a face-to-face program to slip a little bit down in terms of quality assurance. So this is, for instance, the framework that we use to continually keep on track our online learning programs. It's built around 4 steps. Input, which means that we continuously measure and benchmark if there are any differences in terms of the profile of the students who start a face-to-face or an online program. So to check if some important differences are there in terms, I don't know, of age, in terms of type of job, in terms of university background, etc. Process means interaction. So we have a number of KPIs continuously updated around how much people during the process of the MBA interact with each other, with the professor. So interaction and networking aspects. Then output means how much they learn. And so we have KPIs keeping under control differences between traditional and online programs in terms of the average evaluation that professors gives, the average satisfaction that students report to us. And finally, outcome. We try to measure as much as possible acceptance on the job market. So the extent to which companies are happy with the skills and background of people at the end of traditional and online executive MBAs. And so far, we are really impressed by the fact that the companies where our students work or go to work because they change job during the MBA absolutely tell us that the skill, the capabilities, the soft skills of our online MBA students and alumni is absolutely comparable and the same level as the people studying in more traditional face-to-face programs. So these were other important aspects that I wanted to share with you. If you don't continuously measure performance, it's easier in an online program to slip a little down in terms of overall quality than a face-to-face format, because not everything is really under your immediate control. So you need to keep it visible. So we created a little balance scorecard for our executive MBAs and MBAs to keep things under control. A few minutes at the end of this presentation, I wanted to focus on instead the disruptive innovation approach that we are now in the process of bringing forward. And we started to think 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, at the big changes that the key actors in the higher education system were facing. So which were the real pain points of these actors, and which were the most important mega trends affecting the environment in which we all work. And we realized that one of the most important changes, one of the most important mega trends that were potentially affecting the higher education system is that faculty, alumni, business schools, companies who recruit students, and the students themselves today are immersed into a huge distributed knowledge ecosystem made of high quality digital and not only digital contents that only a few years ago was not available, was not there, was not accessible. And so we started to think about what are the pain points that the actors of the higher education system have today, and are mostly the consequences of this huge distributed knowledge learning contents ecosystem. So faculty, for instance, they are asking themselves what will be their role, what will be their mission in the future in a world where knowledge is so richly and available and easily accessible. So is the professor still the person with all the knowledge needed to train as much as possible the skills of his or her students. Alumni want to receive effective continuous learning services and stay in touch with their alma mater. So on-the-job continuous learning is something that the fact that our alumni are immersed into this huge knowledge ecosystem is becoming increasingly important for them. Business schools are searching for means to amplify the impact on society at affordable costs. So what we could do and what we should do with all the contents available just at one click that we saw before. Students are more interested than before to have personalized programs, experiences. They want to benchmark their strengths and weaknesses against similar people on the job market, and they are starting to become not 100% satisfied of the learning content that a school can deliver, both physically or digitally, and starting to think about what the knowledge sources I showed you before can represent for them to grow their skill. And finally, companies, they are searching to have more interactive training of their talents. They want to engage in a more richer and active way with the prospects. So we see these changes. And in my view, these changes are strongly linked with the digital transformation process that is impacting also business schools and higher education institutions. So we started a project which is a very ambitious project, but it also wants to be a pilot project, because at the end we really don't know where we will go. And the big question is, will business schools become multi-sided platforms through which they deliver personalized, on-the-job, continuous learning services to students, alumni, and prospects? And we try to give an answer to this question by working with Microsoft on an AI project, which is called FLEXA. And I have a little video to show what FLEXA is right now. Okay, this video gives you an overview of the idea and the mission behind FLEXA. But what is FLEXA? FLEXA is a personalized continuous learning digital platform that we created to offer innovative services to students and alumni of our school. It includes a tool for assessing and benchmarking their hard, soft, and digital skills against similar managers and executives on the job market. And it uses the artificial intelligence services from Microsoft to recommend the best, most tailored contents to close these skill gaps. On top of this, FLEXA has a number of networking and matchmaking services, providing new ways to engage also with headhunters, recruiters, and HR people to our students and alumni. But the most interesting thing about FLEXA is that we are trying to create a real ecosystem of learning contents to be offered and tailored to the needs of our users of FLEXA through artificial intelligence, which includes not only contents that we as a business school of Politecnico di Milano create and deliver physically and also digitally, but through a number of agreements that we are signing with other top business schools like Harvard Business School, MIT Sloan Management Review, Istituto de Impresa, with providers of MOOCs, with other digital learning companies like HS Talks or Masterclass, like providers of specialized data like Gartner, or editors like Financial Times and the New York Times. We are really starting to think with this project about whether or not the future of business school can be platforms matching the knowledge available within and outside the business school to the needs and to the career expectations of students and alumni. It's a very ambitious project. Is for us, first of all, a learning opportunity. We released at the end of 2018 a prototype of FLEXA to our students, and in the next months, FLEXA will be released to alumni with additional networking, mentorship, coaching, communities of interesting features, and then mid of this year, spring 2019, also FLEXA will be available to companies, to recruiters, to create hopefully a great match among the job profiles of our students and alumni and their job requests. This is an example, I don't know if you agree, of using digital technologies not to offer something you have already been offering to your students, improving your competitive advantage, but it's a learning opportunity into something, a new business model, a new system of technologies that in the medium to long term can be closely linked to the survival of an organization like a higher education provider. So we don't know where we will go. It's just something we are working on because we think that from this kind of digital technologies and business model, the future of business school can be impacted. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was excellent, Federico. So thanks for doing the webinar. We've only got a short amount of time, so we can only answer 2 questions. But if you do have questions, please send them in to us. We'll pass them over to Federico so he can answer the questions by email. So the first question which we've had in is, we've had difficulties getting faculty to accept the use of digital platforms for e-learning. How can a school properly train faculty as well as motivate them to adapt these technologies for lectures and assignments?
Okay, I didn't get some part of the question, but I think the problem is that there were some issues in training the faculty, okay, on using the platform, okay. To be honest, again, I come back to my comment that I raised before. There's one issue which is cultural, or let's say implicit barriers to adoption, which, believe me, can be strongly reduced if the more conservative faculty professor listen directly to the voice of the early adopters of these tools about how easy it is to use them. Then, to be honest, we talked about user experience, user interaction is something that is useful for the students, but it's something that is useful also for the faculty. To be honest, we were not really great from this point of view, because we were very careful about the user experience of the platform for the students, not as much for professors who have to use the platform, upload material, download assignments, discuss topics on the platform, and this is for us for sure is an area of improvement. But again, user experience in terms of technology and having more conservative professor listen and learn from the earlier users of the platform is what, in our experience, was most important. Then, to be honest, I thought that the barriers to use the tools available in our platform would be higher for our professor. Then it was not like this. It's pretty much easy to hold an online synchronous session if you teach the real 2-3 important things to professor, and if you have these professors speak before the session with some colleagues, maybe that they estimate that have already tried it. So again, word of mouth, learning from peers, and of course, the platform has to be straightforward, easy to use.
That's excellent. Just one last question. How can a business school compete online with the likes of Harvard when they offer similar content, but with their recognized brand?
That's another interesting point. I think that one aspect is competing with digital learning as a sustaining innovation, okay? And of course, if you do so, you don't have to lose your sources of competitive advantage. Of course, it will be more complex because with digital technologies, geographical barriers, of course, do not exist anymore, but you have your positioning. So I'm sure that as Politecnico di Milano, to continue with digital learning as a sustaining innovation with other top business schools launching digital learning programs, you have to strengthen even more what makes you different, which can mean why studying in Italy, what content as an Italian school you can deliver, what a technical university with the third best startup incubator in the world can offer differently in an MBA compared to the others. So using digital as a sustained innovation means requires in the future strengthening your distinctive capabilities as one of the top business schools in Italy, in Milan, of a technical university. Then, of course, in terms of disruptive innovation, I think that here competition from the top business school is not really an issue, because in our FLEXA project, for instance, we're just partnering with Harvard to have access to their own contents. And so competition will be shaped through ecosystems where business school will take on different roles in increasingly growing in size and complexity ecosystem where you can create and deliver value in completely different ways. So I'm not expecting that live face-to-face classes will disappear, completely the other way around, but the weight of digital learning tools will increase. You have to strengthen your distinctive characteristics in the sustaining innovation perspective and partner with other business schools in the more disruptive endeavors you can start. This is, in my view, the basic. Then, of course, as any disruptive innovation, if digital learning will have disruptive impact, I'm sure that, and Clayton Christensen tells that there will be a lot of business schools shrinking, maybe failing or disappearing. This is the history of how technology impacts established market segment, and so I don't see why or how it cannot impact also education. I was reading few days ago some articles saying that as an effect of digital technologies, there's 50% of the US colleges that will be under threat from competition on costs and coming from more, let's say, digitalized competitors. So it's an important strategic issue to discuss.
That's excellent. So I'd just like to thank you again, Federico, for your time for doing the webinar today. I thought it was very insightful on my side. So just a quick one for everyone listening. We'll be sending a link out hopefully next week, which will have the slideshow along with the audio recording. The next webinar is taking place on the 6th of February. It's a nice early one at 8 AM UK time. That will be based on the role of business schools in society, the movement towards purpose and responsibility. So if you're interested in joining that webinar and other webinars, and hopefully coming to our event, please visit the Association of MBAs, where you can have all the information, content, and read about the bios about the people who'll be speaking and upcoming events. So yeah, I'd just like to thank you again, Federico, for your time, and everyone listening. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I hope it was useful. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.